right. Well, good afternoon. For those that don't know me, I'm Brad Schneider, chair of the New Democrat Coalition, and I am excited to be joined by my colleagues, Mark Vesey, Nikki Budzinski, Marilyn Strickland, Andrea Salinas, and Jennifer McClellan. We are part of the New Dem leadership team. I want to start with some news, one old piece of news. From a couple days ago, the New Dems were pleased to welcome 5 new members to our coalition. Daniel Goldman, Mike Levin, Johanna Hayes, Brad Sherman, and Kevin Mullen, bringing our total to 114. So I'm very excited about that. And then in other news, if you haven't seen, this is from CBS, a judge orders 6 agencies to rehire fired federal probationary workers after unlawful termination, saying that the OPM firings were unlawful. So it is a California judge that issued this ruling. We're waiting for it to be put into paper, and then it'll go through the appeals. But it was a step forward, and we're very pleased to share that. But we are here today to call out the cost of Donald Trump's chaos economy and offer an alternative vision for the path forward for both the Democratic Party and our country. Donald Trump promised to lower costs on day one. Yet 2 months into his presidency, he continues to focus on everything but helping American families make ends meet and get ahead. Thanks to Trump's torrent of tariffs and the whiplash of his daily flip-flops, we find ourselves locked in what the Wall Street Journal calls, and I'm quoting, the dumbest trade war in history, end quote, while the American economy is now staring down the abyss of the recession. Along with unelected billionaire and shadow president Elon Musk, Donald Trump is wreaking havoc across the federal government and our economy, gutting federal programs millions of hardworking people rely on just to give billionaires like Elon Musk a free ride. We see the costs of Trump's chaos economy in virtually every facet of life. Prices for everyday essentials like gas and groceries are going up. Big ticket items like cars, houses, and appliances are going to cost more as tariffs raise the prices for steel, aluminum, and lumber. American retirement savings and the values of Americans' 401ks, their mutual fund stocks, and bonds are in free fall. Just look at your app today. Last month, layoffs in the country spiked 245%, the largest seen spike since the Great Recession. With Elon Musk and his Doge minions accessing Americans' personal data and slashing government employees, experts are now warning that, for the first time in our history, Social Security checks may not go out on time, and some may not go out at all. And with Robert Kennedy Jr., a vaccine-denying crackpot running HHS, measles is threatening America's children, and bird flu is ravaging America's farms. To build forward momentum and to position Democrats to take the majority next year, we must heed the lessons of the 2024 election. While last year the tide moved away from Democrats nationwide, New Dem members and candidates were successful because our common sense-centered message resonated with the American people. We defended 85 of 87 incumbents and added 25 new members to our ranks, flipping 9 seats from red to blue in the process. New Dems are now the largest ideological caucus in Congress, and we are still growing. As I mentioned, we added 5 new members yesterday, bringing our total to 114, a solid majority of the Democratic caucus. It's clear that our message of pragmatic solutions and our focus on pocketbook issues is resonating with both the American people and our colleagues in Congress. Looking forward, we have to focus on 3 things: economic growth and lowering costs, healthy and safe communities, and strong national security and national defense. New Dems are tirelessly working to bring down prices on everyday products, while Trump's chaos economy and trade war tantrums are wreaking havoc across our economy and raising prices for American consumers, effectively putting a Trump tax on every single American. Put simply, the New Dems are leading from the center, and we will support our Democratic leadership, Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, and Pete Aguilar, as we all work together to move our nation forward. So let me now turn to my colleagues to speak more about how the chaos and corruption of this administration impacts key facets of American life. And I'd like to start with Nikki Budzinski.
Thank you, Brad, and thank you for sharing our vision for the New Dems this Congress. During his campaign, President Trump also shared his vision. He promised to lower prices, keep us safe on day one. But since taking office, his administration has pursued policies that are having the opposite effect. Take a trip to the grocery store, and you'll find that egg prices are at an all-time high. Turn on the news, and you will hear about the rising cases of bird flu. Instead of addressing this crisis directly, the president took to his Truth Social account to share an article suggesting Americans should, quote unquote, shut up about rising egg prices. I refuse to stay silent about an issue that is putting our public health at risk and threatening the livelihoods of farmers all across this nation. This week, I published an op-ed in Fox News outlining the administration's failure to take decisive action to contain the spread and mitigation and its impact on our food supply chain with these rising cases of the bird flu. Instead, they have suggested importing more eggs and even raising chickens in our own backyard. That's a quote. A suggestion that is not only unsafe, but totally absurd. Importing additional eggs is not a reliable form of price stabilization, especially considering the 25% tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico that continue to loom over our economy. In 2023, the United States imported $44.1 million worth of eggs from Canada, more than 40% of all imports of eggs in the United States. Imposing tariffs on a reliable trading partner who makes up a significant portion of existing imports is not going to translate into better prices for consumers, and it certainly won't improve conditions for U.S. egg producers. This is the reality. I also want to acknowledge that there have been reports that indicate that DOGE has targeted layoffs at the CDC, including fellows at the Laboratory Leadership Service. These are the scientists that are on the front line of combating the bird flu epidemic. I'm not playing politics here because there is no time to waste. And this is an issue that cannot just be addressed by Democrats alone. I stand ready to work with the President and Secretary Rollins and the rest of the Trump administration to implement a comprehensive strategy that contains this virus, stabilizes the farm economy, and lowers food prices for hardworking families across the country. I hope this administration will rise to this challenge. I know that members like New Dems are up to this task and ready to get to work for the American people. Thank you, and I want to turn it over now to my friend, Vice Chair Congressman Mark Vesey.
Well, Brad pointed out something that I think was really significant. He talked about the dumbest trade war, and I want y'all to remember that that was not written in the Wall Street Journal in their regular paper. That was written in their on their editorial page, which is more like Fox News or ONN or any other very conservative outlet. So please keep that in mind, where that dumbest trade war came from. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And I wish that I had better news, but I think that this is a sad and gloomy day for America. And I think that it's been a sad and gloomy day ever since January the 20th, because all we have seen is nonsense, silliness. Even today, more talk about Greenland, and all while he's doing all this stuff, Americans are feeling the squeeze every time they go into the grocery store just to get some food for their kids. And the cost of everyday essentials, that's milk, eggs, bread, just the basics. Everyone feels like their paycheck is getting thinner. And now what were once basics have really become luxuries. And instead of stepping up to help hardworking Americans, the Trump administration is making things so much worse. Their failure to take decisive action on the bird flu outbreak and curb inflation tells us what we already know. This administration never had a plan to put food on your table. This administration would rather turn the White House into a cheap used car lot than to put food on the table and clothes on your back. All they have shown is that they are willing to unleash chaos through these bullshit Trump tariff taxes that are just absolutely make it harder on families. When Trump said, shut up about the price of eggs, he meant it. The man cannot be bothered because he truly does not give a damn about the American people. He cares about these damn oligarchs more than anybody else. Believe that. But Democrats, we have a plan. We are focused on lowering cost, tackling the root causes of inflation, and taking decisive action like strengthening supply chains. We're going to be working with farmers and businesses instead of taxing them. Instead of taxing them like these Trump tariff taxes. And making sure families don't have to choose between putting food on the table and paying their bills. That's the leadership that the American people deserve, and that's exactly what New Dems are fighting for. And we won't be selling Teslas on the lines on the line of the White House. That's ridiculous. Selling Teslas while people are struggling to pay bills. Thank you very much. And I would like to yield to my colleague, who is the whip of New Dems from Washington's 10th Congressional District, Marilyn Strickland.
Thank you, Mr. VC. It is my honor to be here with you today, but as my colleague Mark VC just explained, it's a sad and tragic time in American history. Whenever a president gets elected, regardless of your party affiliation, you always hope for the best, because that's good for our country. It's good for the American people. Donald Trump has shown the exact opposite. And the criticism that we have of the Trump-Musk administration is not a criticism of anyone who voted for Trump or anyone who decided to sit out this election. You made the choice you did. But as members of the Democratic Party and the House Dems and the New Dems, we have a duty to tell you how they are hurting you. This administration does not care about you. They don't care if you get sick. They don't care if you get hurt. They don't care if you can pay your bills. And they don't care if you're safe. And they certainly don't care if you're a veteran. The layoffs and the randomness of them are just unconscionable. A lot of people who work for the Veterans Administration are actually people who served in the military themselves. They wanted to continue their service to our country. So they wore the uniform, they served their time, and they said, you know what, I'm going to keep serving. And a lot of people who work for the Veterans Administration are in fact veterans themselves, because studies have shown that peer-to-peer assistance can be very, very helpful for veterans. But all this firing is just absurd. And I want to think about this in the context of the continuum of national security. This is a risk to national security. This will hurt our ability to recruit and retain people. And when you have the Pentagon's top official going after diversity, equity, and inclusion, when 40% of the people in the military who are enlisted are actually minorities, it makes no damn sense. Anyone who is qualified and willing to serve should have the right to do so. You can't serve a recruiting crisis if you're trying to keep people out of the military. But the Veterans Administration is vital. It's a vital service. It provides everything from helping people find housing, get access to health care, get mental health care. And the fact that this administration yet again is proving that they care more about lining their own pockets, helping their billionaire friends, they are stealing from the American people, it's wrong, and the New Dems are here to say that. It's now my honor to present my friend and colleague from the Northwest, Leadership Member Andrea Salinas from Oregon's 6th District.
Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you, Chair Schneider, and to my other leadership colleagues. As my constituents have alluded to, we are living through a great Republican ripoff right now that's hurting working families in my district and putting more money into the pockets of billionaires. Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and Republicans in Congress who are completely complicit with this are on a campaign of destruction, cutting off services and benefits that Americans have paid into and deserve. I keep saying that. My constituents work too damn hard, pay their taxes to have the programs that they rely on to put food on the table and to get health care taken away right now. And taking away that health care is at the top of this Republican Congress's priority list. Over 1.4 million Oregonians rely on Medicaid for their health care. That's about a third of our entire population. They include veterans, pregnant women, children in foster care, and people with disabilities, all of whom could lose their coverage thanks to the Republican ripoff. I'm not being hypothetical. Musk and Trump want to slash Medicaid by nearly $1 trillion, but I'll be accurate, $900 billion. That is an astronomical number, and it's going to rip healthcare away from millions of hardworking families just to help a few billionaires get even richer. Medicare, Social Security, and veterans benefits are also on the chopping block. And what people don't quite understand, people back home, is that this will affect our entire healthcare system. Providers won't get paid, hospitals will be overrun with patients, and those with private insurance will have to flip the bill. They will pay more. I want people to know what's coming, not all the crap that we've been dealing with for the last 5 weeks, but what else is coming. That is not how you govern responsibly or how you bring down costs for families. That was the #1 issue I ran on. My G&H, gas, groceries, housing, and healthcare. As Democrats, but especially as members of the New Democrat coalition, we need to be the voice of reason amid all this chaos. We will continue to speak out and fight back against the harm being done by this administration, and we are here to offer an alternative vision for America, one where working families always come first, where everyone can afford to see a doctor, put food on the table, and retire with dignity, not just the billionaire class. Thank you for joining us today, and it is my honor to introduce another leadership member, Jennifer McClellan from Virginia's 4th District.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Before being confirmed as the director of OMB, Russell Vought said that he wanted to traumatize the federal workforce. He said he wanted them to be viewed as the villain. He has traumatized the federal workforce. I know because I've received texts from federal workers that say, "Help us." I know because a woman who worked for the VA for years in Texas got a promotion, moved to Virginia to be an IT specialist, was fired, and found out when she showed up for work and couldn't log into her computer. And who are the people that the Trump administration is villainizing and traumatizing? They're the people that make sure our air travel is safe. They're the people who make sure that our water is drinkable and that our food is edible. They're the people that provide health care to our veterans. They're the people who make sure that every child gets the services they need to succeed in school. And when their civil rights are violated, particularly our students with disabilities, they stand up for them and protect them. Now, the Trump administration says, well, many of these jobs can be done by the states. They can't. And in a state like Virginia, that has over 300,000 federal workers who pay taxes into the Virginia economy, who purchase goods and services, putting money into the Virginia economy. And many of them have already filed for unemployment in Virginia. Many of them will not be contributing to the Virginia economy. And the Commonwealth of Virginia cannot absorb these workers. Nor should a nuclear scientist have to go to a website to find a job stacking warehouse shelves. And when you think of this in the context of all of the other cuts that you've heard today, particularly Medicaid, how are the states going to be able to absorb these workers and services when a hole is going to be blown in their budget because of the cuts to Medicaid? A state like Virginia, all of the states are going to be hurt, but particularly Virginia and Texas and Maryland and California and Washington and Colorado are going to be devastated. We, the New Dem coalition and the House Democrats, will not abandon our federal workers. For many of them, like my grandfather, The path to the middle class came through the federal workforce. We will not abandon them because they will never abandon us. Thank you all.
Great. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, everybody. We have time for a couple of questions. Please.
Can you talk just a bit about...
Tell me your name. I'm sorry.
Hey, this is Hannah Knowles with the Washington Post. Can you guys talk just a bit about your takeaways from this retreat so far, what you guys have been discussing? In your
No, next question. Sure, I'll give you my take. I've been talking about it a lot. I think that the first and most important thing about this retreat is it brings all of the caucus together in an informal environment where we can have extended time talking to each other, talking about the priorities we're focused on and our plans for moving forward. We are here just outside of Washington, fighting against a Republican effort to abandon their responsibilities in the House and Senate and transfer the funding process to the administration. We are hoping that we will be voting for not a rest of the year CR that kicks the can not just down the road but out of the road completely, and we have a chance to do a 4-week CR and focus. But that's what we've been talking about. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in. Yeah, and quickly so we can get.
I will say this: the Republicans are making it very easy for us to unify behind one message. They're making it very easy for us to define who they are with all these misdeeds and the way they're hurting people. And at the same time, we know that we can focus on the economy, we can focus on national security, and we can focus on safety. So it's really unified us more than anything else.
Thanks for it, Nick.
I want to ask also about this hearing. Right now, Senate Democrats are talking amongst themselves about what to do about it. But if they do actually help advance this today, tomorrow, to you guys, does this seem like they've just given everything to Trump and let it go through?
I don't think it's a matter of giving everything, but I'm speaking for myself. Trump is going to continue to push the limits every single day. He is looking out for himself, for the people around him, like Elon Musk, etc. They are trying to dismantle the government, as was said earlier, terrorize federal employees, to browbeat and beat down any opposition. If they can't browbeat them, they will beat them in the courts or do whatever they want. We need to make sure we stiffen our spines, that we plant our feet and stand resolutely defiant to protect everything that for 248 years, the people before us have worked to build this nation. Please.
I'm interested, obviously, too, looking at the speaker list, how much of you all behind closed doors have been talking about any hard lessons learned from 2024 as you look to 26 and 28?
I would say we've been having this conversation since November 5th, talking about that. As I said in my remarks, we have to heed the lessons of last year and look at where we can be better. We've talked about making sure that we are listening to voters, understanding what are their priorities, speaking to those priorities. I think also, and this is where the New Dems stand out, is we shared a message that was effective. 85 of 87 incumbents, 25 new members, and it is a message of centered, pragmatic solutions to the challenges people face, making sure that we're clearing obstacles and opening pathways for people to achieve their aspirations and dreams and provide hopes and dreams for their kids. And that's what we'll continue to focus on, those pocketbook issues. I don't know if anyone else wants to add. Right, please.
Meryl Goldfield from the Washington Post. A number of you spoke about representing federal workers. If there is a shutdown this weekend, what's your message to constituents?
Jennifer, you want to do that?
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of our federal workers, the government's already shut down. And they're being whipsawed back and forth and told, don't come into work tomorrow, don't do your job. And what we don't want to do is give Elon Musk and Donald Trump carte blanche to continue traumatizing our federal workers. And that's what the CR that the Republicans passed does. And our message to federal workers, just like our message is to the American people, is we are fighting for you. We are fighting for you. And let's think about why Trump, Musk, and the Republicans are doing what they're doing. They are trying to eliminate the federal workforce, to steal money from them and the services they provide to give tax cuts to billionaires. And the ones that they think they need, they want to replace with people who will swear loyalty to Donald Trump and not swear to preserve and defend the Constitution and loyalty to the American people. And we're not going to let that happen. And we are not going to be held hostage to Republicans who are in control. Remember, Republicans are in control of the White House, the House, and the Senate. If the government shuts down, it's because they want it to, not us.
I will also add one thing too.
Okay, please. Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the actions that Musk is taking with all of these civil servants and federal agencies, he's behaving like a private equity firm coming in to dismantle and destroy and then repackage it so that he can make money off of it. And if you think about what is happening right now, look at some of the federal contracts that Musk has or is awarding to himself. That is a complete conflict of interest. So don't be surprised if you see the attempt to dismantle these agencies like a private equity firm coming in and him saying, you know what, I can do that better, and he will profit off of it.
Thank you. In the back.
Arthur Delaney with HuffPost. How have the protests against Trump administration and hecklers at Republican town halls affected you?
I'm not sure I follow the question. What I will point out, I'll use an example. I've been talking about this yesterday in Ways and Means. Ways and Means Democrats had privilege resolution simply asking from IRS and Social Security Administration details about what data Doge and Musk have gotten on American citizens, their Social Security numbers, bank accounts, driver's license, etc. We just want to know what they've gotten and what they plan to do with it. Republicans fought us every step of the way. I will tell you, in the midst of that, it was announced that Doge was going to shut down the telephones at Social Security, so people couldn't call in. They were going to make them show up in person. And we protested. We made it very loud that we thought this was bad policy. As we were screaming about it, I observed some of my colleagues on the other side literally putting their hands to their heads, and today we saw that that decision was pulled back. You have seen time and again over the last 7 weeks where the president has gone down one path only to see the impacts or face criticism and pull back. Not every time, but many times. And I think what we need to do is be out there rallying in support of our veterans, rallying in support of our seniors, of our federal workers, of people who depend on Medicaid for their health care, saying we are fighting for them. And as we fight for them and draw attention to what Doge, Musk, and Trump are trying to do to them, I think you'll see public sentiment shift and hopefully responses differ. So, okay, thank you.
I love this question because I've been telling my constituents it's the other way around, actually. My constituents and those who are speaking out in Democratic districts have really upped the ante for those who are in Republican districts. And those in Republican districts say, for example, Congressman Cliff Bentz on the eastern side of my state, he's the lone Republican out there. He is seeing a barrage of people because they are recognizing my farmers in the Willamette Valley are no different than his ranchers out in eastern Oregon. They're seeing the same USDA loans being stifled, the same small business loans being taken away. So what's happening is some of these districts where Democrats represent, Republicans are taking a look and being like, oh, we're in the same boat. We are no different than anybody else in this right now. Trump doesn't give a damn about us, even though we voted for him.
Great answer. Go ahead.
Yes, I want to talk about Democrats.
Tell us.
Sorry. I want to talk about the Dems brand as a whole. There's a poll that showed that Democrats have a massive brand problem. Do you think you have a massive brand problem? And what are some messages you're trying to counteract that?
I'm going to let Mark jump in here in a second, but what I'll tell you is we recognize that last November, voters gave the House, the Senate, and the White House to the Republicans, and we've got to connect better. And I think we've been talking about it since the election. We are focused like a laser on addressing that. I think you see as we are putting the spotlight on what the Republicans are doing, you're seeing the president's approval rating dropping every day, every week, every day, every hour, it's one thing to put a spotlight on what they're doing. We're also putting a focus on our vision. I'll speak for New Dems. We put out our platform and are putting together our working groups that reflect the priorities of the American people. 3 pillars: economy, communities, and security, and working groups on everything from rural revitalization, immigration and border security, national security and defense, to healthcare, innovation, and technology. That's what we're focused on. We're delivering that message, and I think you'll see that rise. Mark, I don't know if you want to add to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just let me say this, is that we know that we have to take a look at ourselves, and we're doing that, right? We saw what happened during the election, but I also think that if the American people had known that this shit was going to be this crazy, I also don't think that they would have voted for Trump if they had had a crystal ball and they could have saw exactly what's happening right now with their 401ks, their kids' 529s, Republicans that work at the GSA building in downtown Fort Worth, Republicans that work at the Earl Cabell building in downtown Dallas, that work for FAA Regional. These are veterans, Republicans and Democrats. It's not just, they're not just letting go of Democratic government employees. It's everybody that's feeling this. And so, to your question, no, I don't think they would have chosen this nonsense that we're seeing now, but that does not mean that we're not taking a serious look at issues like immigration and trying to elevate the importance of things like cost in people's everyday lives. So we're taking a look. We understand that there's some introspection that is needed, and we're doing that. We're not in denial, and we're taking that seriously.
Can I add one thing to that?
Yep. We'll do one more question.
You know, a big part of the problem with the Democratic brand was that the vast majority of American people only heard one message from Republicans. The biggest lesson that we've taken away is that we can't communicate the way that we did in 2020 or 2016. That we need to meet voters where they are, whether that's on YouTube or Reddit or reading the Washington Post. And what we have seen is the Democratic brand, as defined by Republicans, was the problem. We need to get out and define ourselves, and we're doing that.
Can I say this real quick? About the podcast, or well, you can play.
I'll close that. Michael, I'll give you the last question.
Michael from Once Upon a Hill. I appreciate you all for doing this. You all pride yourselves on bipartisanship, reaching out across the aisle, but a lot of Democratic voters view Republicans as going at it alone, not looking to extend the hand of bipartisanship in the same way, and want Democrats sometimes to do what you're doing now on the so-called continuing resolution and withhold that hand of bipartisanship. What's your message to folks out there who no longer believe that Congress is a place where bipartisanship can exist, when that's core and central to your brand as New Dems?
I'm going to give provide you with 2 halves an answer. I'll talk about Northern Illinois, then I'm going to turn to Nikki, and you'll give the Southern Illinois, but I think that, the center of the country. You're 100% right. I came here arguing bipartisanship. I've worked hard to do as much as I can with colleagues on both sides of the aisle, and believe that you move farther. When I'm talking to school kids, this works great on a old school desk. I have them take a pencil and I say, take your finger on your right hand and push the pencil edge of the pencil, and it goes in a circle. I say, now take your left finger and push the eraser edge of the pencil. It goes in a circle the other way. So now take both fingers and put it in the middle of that pencil, and they can move it anywhere on their desk. When we work together, we can pass legislation that stands the test of time, that moves the country forward, that touches on the priorities and needs of people in big cities and rural communities, East Coast, West Coast, and everything in between. What we have now is hyper-partisanship coming from the Republicans. You've seen it. We are in this dilemma with the CR now because Republicans refuse to sit down and even talk with Democrats. We're in this dilemma that we are now because Republicans said we're going to force down your throats a bill that, as I noted before, just absolves Congress of what we are elected and responsible for doing, deciding where our priorities are and how much money we're going to put to those priorities, and abdicates that responsibility to the president. So we don't really have a Republican Party that is willing to engage with us. We are going to stand and fight. We are, that pencil spinning in one circle. We can try our best to make sure that we stop the move towards anarchy or autocracy or whatever word you want to use, and that we're working to fight for the interests of the American people, preventing what is really, as others have said, taking money from students, kids in preschool, veterans, seniors, so that Republicans can give tax cuts to folks like Elon Musk. That's not what we're here for. But we will continue to work as a coalition. We have, as I said, 114 members who work well with everyone in our caucus, working with our leadership, and are ready when the Republicans are ready to work with them. And I'm going to give the last word to Nikki.
Yeah. I would just say I think your question is one of the points of distinction for the New Dems. The 9 working groups that we have rolled out, we're tasking each of those working groups with one, holding this administration accountable where, they are, we're not going to compromise our values and there needs to be accountability. But the second point is still finding the places where we can agree. And are there places where we can work with our Republican colleagues, even in this Congress? You look at some of the moving vehicles like the NDAA, there have usually been a number of bipartisan wins that are found within a piece of legislation like that, or the highway reauthorization that's going to be coming up next year. The New Democrats are still, even in this environment, committed to trying to find the places where we can agree with our Republican colleagues, but still hold this administration accountable. So I think to your question, it's that we believe in doing both. And I think through our working groups, that's what we're committed to doing.
Before we go, I'm going to do a commercial. Let me say thank you. Democrats, especially New Dems, are excited to get home next week, hopefully to be in front of our constituents, to host town halls. But then we always fly back, and a fly-in day is a special day here. And we have a new idea. I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chair Vesey to talk about fly-in.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the gentleman reporter from Fox here that asked the question about communication. We understand that there are a lot of people now that are getting their news from non-traditional sources, and podcasts are one of those places where people like to get a lot of their political information these days. And so New Dems has started a new podcast called The Fly-In. We do it every Fly-In day, whether that fly-in is on Monday or Tuesday, and it's being hosted by myself and Greg Landsman out of Ohio. And so we're going to be talking about politics, but we're also going to be just talking about stuff, too. I'm sure that I'll talk about the Dallas Cowboys. As frustrating as that is for me, I'm sure that when, September rolls around, you'll hear me talking about the Cowboys. So we'll be talking a little bit about everything and what's happening on Capitol Hill. And we hope that y'all will follow that and talk about it, because I think that it is an important way that we're going to have to do a better job of communicating. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks all. Have a great day.